Good Shabbos. This week's portion is Parshas Bo, and the beginning of the portion has the last three plagues of the 10 Makos, of the 10 plagues. The ninth is somewhat interesting. It's the plague of darkness. On the one hand, from a historical point of view, it could be argued very simply that the reason we have that plague is because one of the Egyptian gods is the sun god. And interestingly, the sun god in Egyptian was called Ra. In Hebrew, Ra means evil. So the pun is well taken that their god is really the god of evil. And the Choshech, the darkness, the plague of darkness, is coming to blot out the evil, to blot out the sun, their god, and the associated evil with Egypt. And as a result, the Jews and the Jewish God, the universal God, will be victorious, and the Jews will eventually go out of Egypt. And even from a practical scientific point of view, many have suggested that the plague of Choshech might have been really from a volcanic eruption which blotted out the sun. So it might even be easily or somewhat easily explained just from as a natural occurrence. But I believe there's other symbolism here. Think about it. We go back to the very beginning of creation. And it says, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'sa'aretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But many commentaries say that that's not the correct translation. Because Bereshis doesn't mean in the beginning, it means in the beginning of. And the way you translate it is, in the beginning of the creation of the heaven and the earth, and there was darkness al panei tehom, there was darkness on the face of the depths. Vayomer Elokim yihar, and God said, let there be light. So the first creation, which we have associated with God's directive where he said something, and the rabbis tell us there's 10 statements of creation, and this is the first. God created light. And what is light? Obviously, again, from a scientific point of view, those that talk about the story of creation of the universe from that point of view will tell you that one of the first things that happens with the Big Bang is an explosion of light. But I think you could understand it symbolically. Light is shedding light and apprehension and knowledge in the world. We take darkness, where there's a lack of knowing, lack of seeing, lack of ability to apprehend, and all of a sudden light comes into the world. So whether it's literal light or figurative light, it doesn't really make a difference. God is saying what's really important is that people have an understanding. People could see the light. People could see the truth. And exactly that is the problem perhaps in Egypt. That no matter what God has wrought upon the Egyptian people in the first 8 plagues, Pharaoh hardens his heart, or God hardens his heart. At the end of the day, he's not seeing the light. He's not seeing the truth. He says, who is this God? I don't know your God. And God is saying, I'm going to show you. Yihar, let there be light. But before there's light, it sadly has to happen that there's choshech. There's first darkness. There's first inability to apprehend, not to use one's reasoning or logic, not to use the facts as they are. And therefore, that's what God is saying. You, the Egyptians, represent darkness. Now I'm going to bring light unto this world. And interestingly, when the Jews are led out of Egypt, it says God led them through the wilderness in the day with a cloud of glory and at night with a pillar of fire. That he's shedding light even through the darkness, to cut through the darkness that exists in the wilderness or in the world. And I would say that today, sadly, we see this choshech, this darkness, coming down on the world once again. We hear how people talk about what happened on October 7th and the war, and how people deal with Israel and Jews in general, and you wonder, I listen to the news and I just cannot understand how people could so misunderstand what's going on. And again, whether it's intentional or unintentional, it almost doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, there seems to be a darkness, inability to get through that darkness and see the light and understand the facts, understand the logic, see what's correct, what's morally right, what is the ethical thing to do. And if you look in the story of the plague of darkness, it says there was a choshech afela, there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt. Lo ro ish es achiv, no man could see his brother. When there's darkness, you don't see your friend, you don't see other people in the community, you don't see other nations, you don't see anything correctly. You see everything only from what is specific to you and to your needs. And then even worse, maybe v'lo kamu ish mitachtov shloshes yam. No man, no person was able to get up from his place for 3 days. And that's exactly what happens in this world that we have today, that we inhabit today. That sometimes the darkness causes people who you would think would want to do or usually do the right thing. They're just completely entrapped with their darkness. The darkness holds them back. And as the Medrash says, it was a thick darkness that you could feel it. You couldn't get up. And people don't react properly. People don't defend that which is correct, that which is morally correct. Or in this case, the way I understand it, they don't defend the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. And perhaps what we have to do, as I always say, is the job of the Jewish people, that we should be, as Yeshayahu says, Isaiah says, we should be an Ar Lagoyim, a light unto the nations. And the end of this week's portion has the Jewish people being commanded to bring the Paschal offering. And the Paschal offering, in a sense, offers another suggestion to the Jewish people. Besides shedding light onto the nations, the question is, how do we act internally? And I think there's some symbolism there also, that what you do is you take a sheep or a goat and you roast it whole. As some commentaries say, you don't cut it up. It's one whole piece of meat. It's one whole animal. And the Torah specifically says, "Ve'etzem lo sishbrubo," you should not break any bones. You have to keep it intact. The etzem is the essence. The essence of our existence, symbolically, I believe the Jewish people, has to remain whole. We have to remain unified. And who eats the Karban Pesach? Who eats this offering? Family and those that you invite. And there's a very strange halacha law here that you could only partake of the Karban Pesach, of the offering, if you're invited. In a sense, there has to be an effort to create a family unit and an extended family unit. And by creating that unit and creating unity and making sure that no matter what happens, even in the worst type of fire that is happening, still the etzem lo sishbrubo, the bone, the essence of the Jewish people will not be broken. If we have that unity, if we're able to get our act together, then we could be the Ar Lagoyim, then we could be the light unto the nations. We could break through the choshech, we could break through the darkness, and hopefully that will happen soon and speedily in our days. And we should really see redemption in the sense that the nations of the world understand the true essence of the Jewish people, the message that the Torah gives us, that God wants us to know, and that hopefully there'll be peace in the world once again. Good Shabbos.